Hello, Reading Group 4. Okay, so we're going to move forward in our lesson and we're going to look at what happens to this little skinny I when he's left at the end of a word. Do we remember we have to put the brace on him? We learned this lesson back when we were learning words like bay. And the word bay has peanut butter and jelly, but when we leave I at the end of the word, we have to give him a brace. So this is really how we spell bay, is with AY, but AY makes the same sound as AI. Well, the same case is going to happen here when the little I is at the end of the word. He needs some help. So we give him a brace so that he does not fall over. And so really the word my is spelled M-Y. Same thing applies for the word by. Okay, if I'm going to stand by you, the by that means next to, we need to spell it with B-Y. Okay, so when you see B-Y or M-Y, just remember it is making the sound of the I. It just has a brace on it because it's at the end of the word. All right, so we just covered my and by. The next thing that we're going to be covering is we need to just review our conjugating verbs. We've done this lesson before. We're just going to cover it one more time. So we're going to start off with I, you, and he. And we're going to do the word, let's do the word ride. I ride. What do? You ride. But remember, when we're talking about somebody else, not the first person or the second person, when we are talking in the third person, when we're talking about somebody else, our action word needs to have he rides. It needs to have the S added to the end. So when we're talking about someone else or we're talking in the third person, this is, if I was telling my story and I was using I all the time in my writing, I did this and I went there and I felt this, that's talking in the first person. If I'm talking to you and telling you how to do something and I'm giving you instructions, that's talking in the second person. I'm giving you directions. This is a lot of times how some of our nonfiction books are written when you're reading a self-help book or how to do something. But when we're talking and telling someone else's story, that's talking in the third person, and we have to add S to the end of all action words. He rides his bike. All right, let's try one more. Let's try the word hike. Okay, if I am doing it, I just say I hike up the mountain, okay? If we're talking about yesterday time, that would be different. If you're talking about you've already done it. But if you're talking about right now, I hike up the mountain. You also hike. And when we go to talk about the third person, it can be he or she. We can even name that other person. Gail. What does Gail do? Gail hikes. Add the S to the end. Okay, that was just a little quick review because it's going to be coming up in some worksheets later on. Not in this lesson, but it will be coming up later on. So we just needed to review it. We're now going to go ahead and move on and look at our next vowel pattern. So far we've taken our layer cake vowel pattern and we've put letter A wearing the crunchy filling and speaking their name. We've done letter I here in the crunchy filling speaking their name, and now we're going to move on to the letter O. So now we have two vowel patterns that say O. Our first vowel pattern that we learned that says O is the peanut butter and jelly O. Now we have O plate E. So when we get into spelling, you have a peanut butter and jelly O and a layer cake O. And so I'll have to tell you whether the word is peanut butter and jelly or layer cake, and then you'll have to choose the right vowel pattern. There will be a spelling story that I teach you probably next year when we come back to school, so that you don't have to ask if it's peanut butter and jelly or layer cake anymore. Once you learn this spelling story, kind of like we did the deer story. If you remember when we learned the deer story, if a word was in the deer story, we spelled it with EE. Well, there is a spelling story for this one as well. We'll just learn it probably next year. So for now, when we do spelling practice, I'll just tell you if it's peanut butter and jelly or layer cake. Okay, so we have the O plate E vowel pattern. O is going to say their name. E is silent. So if O is saying his name, the word is pole. Pole. This is where you have like a flag pole or a telephone pole. Okay? Let's practice reading these two, and then we're going to move into some vocabulary. We have the word O, home, home. I live in my home. No, nose. Now remember, when letter S has to stand next to bully E, he doesn't make his normal sound. He doesn't say nos, nos. Remember, when he has to stand next to bully E, just like when letter C has to stand next to bully E, they don't make their normal sound. Instead, this one buzzes, zzz, and this one hisses, ss. So this is the word nose. Just remember that when S is standing next to E, it's normally going to buzz. Okay. I need you to get out a sheet of notebook paper and create a vocabulary paper. You're going to be doing vocabulary along with me. So remember, we fold this piece of paper in half like a hamburger and fold it again, okay? Now this time you're going to trace your lines on the front, and you also need to trace your lines on the back because we're going to be learning 8 new vocabulary words. You're going to write the word at the top of each square. You're going to draw a picture of what the word means, and you're going to put the word in a sentence. The reason why we do vocabulary this way is because this helps us to put the word into long-term memory. For many of us, we have issues with short-term memory and long-term memory. And so using these steps for learning new vocabulary words is crucial to keeping it in your long-term memory. In other words, you want to not have to learn it again and again and again. You want to be able to learn it this one time and we move on and we've got it. So I really need you to get that sheet of notebook paper out. And as I give you these 8 new words that you may not know what they mean, most of them you might not, I need you to be doing this activity with me. So if I go too fast, you need to go ahead and pause the video at the end. Anytime I give you a new word, I'm going to talk about what it means, and then I'm going to move on to the next one. But you need to pause the video, and you need to take the time to draw the picture and write the sentence, okay? All right.